Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Anka. I'm a registered dietitian from a practice called Sound Dietitians, where I get to come and do these fun classes for you guys. Um, and today, the theme of our class is No Cook Summer Favorites. So, where all of the recipes are going to be no cook, you don't have to turn on your oven or your stove. Um, Really nice, refreshing, light recipes that are really versatile. But before we get started, I just want to thank Skagit Regional Health for sponsoring this class and Stilly Valley Health Connections for hosting. Thank you to Christina in the back for taking care of all the IT things so I don't have to. And let's get started. So let me introduce the recipes real quick. We're going to start with a vegan pecan apple chickpea salad. So this is kind of a take on a chicken salad, but we're using chickpeas instead of chicken. Then we will move on to the chopped Thai salad. So this is a really fun aromatic salad, has a lot of herbs, a lot of spices. It's really delicious. We're going to be using edamame as a protein source, but I would encourage you, if you were making this salad as an entree, have an additional protein, whether it's shrimp or chicken or steak or tofu, or just doing double edamame to get enough protein for it to be an actual entree salad. Last, we're going to finish with the summer mozzarella sandwich. So this is a really fun, easy sandwich. We're also going to be making our pesto from scratch. If you do not have time to make pesto from scratch, store-bought is fine. So let's get started with our chickpea salad. I have 2 cans of chickpeas. Whoops, sorry about that. In here, I rinse them. They're pretty dry. And what we're going to do is just take a fork and mash them up. Right, so they're not too chunky. You could also use a potato masher. We don't have one in this kitchen, but we have these really big forks. So that will work. And it's really kind of up to you how chunky you want the salad to be, right? You can do whatever you want in terms of textures. You could also mix and match. That's kind of what I did with my prep. So we're also adding some celery and green onions to this. Those ones I chopped a little bit more fine. The apples, I left them a little chunkier just so we have a little bit of variety in textures, right? So with the chickpeas, again, we don't want them to be mush, right? But we don't want them to stay like whole either. And by mashing them too, it's going to help with the dressing to basically penetrate through the chickpea, make it a lot more flavorful. Okay. I think I'm gonna leave it at that. So there's still some that are pretty chunky. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, so I have my apples. I doubled this recipe, so we're going to be adding 2 apples. Again, it's kind of up to you what apple you want to use. These guys are Cosmic Crisp apples. They are crispy, as their name suggests. And they looked really good in the store, so that's why I got them. You could also do, your Gala apples, your Honeycrisp. I will say with the Honeycrisp, though, depending on how big the Honeycrisp is, you might need to just use half, or if you're doubling the recipe using just one.
The green apple picked it, would that be a little too tart?
So with the green apple that's there in the image on the recipe, so it's kind of up to you. I didn't pick a green apple today because I know that some people don't prefer a green apple. It can be a little bit too tart, but if that is your preference, totally go for it. Yeah. Okay. So again, I just cored the apple, and then I'm just cutting these quarters kind of in half. Just so that they're not too chunky. So this salad recipe, you can make a sandwich out of it, put it on bread, right? Or you could use it almost like a dip, right? With veggies, crackers. I brought crackers today, so we could do more of a dip um, variation. You could also just eat it with a spoon if you wanted to. You don't, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Yeah. And the chickpeas do, and the salad, like the entire salad, holds up really well. So you could prep this a few days ahead of time. For example, if you're taking it to a potluck or a picnic, or just having it, at the start of your week. So you have something to grab for lunch or for a snack too. All right, so we got our apples in. Okay. And then next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our pecans. Um, so these are raw. They're not toasted. You could toast them if you wanted to. And then dried cranberries. And we are going to put them on the cutting board and hopefully not make too much of a mess. And we're just going to do a rough chop so they're not quite as big, especially the pecans. They do tend to be a little bit on the bigger side compared to the rest of our ingredients. And with the cranberries, you want to chop them just a little bit so they're a little bit smaller. Makes it a little bit easier to eat. And I would recommend for the dried cranberries, the sweetened one do tend to be quite a little bit too sweet. So if you have and can find unsweetened ones, I would totally recommend going for that. I only had sweetened ones at home, so that's what we're using today. If you did have sweetened ones, you could adjust the sweetness of the dressing. So we are adding honey to the dressing. Um, so that could be a point to adjust if needed. Okay. So that's pretty much a rough chop. We're going to add this to our salad. I'm hoping that this bowl is big enough. Thank you. Didn't make too much of a mess. Okay. All right. And then I have celery, green onions that are going in. So a lot of color, a lot of different flavors going in here. And then some parsley that I just minced really well. Okay. And that is basically all of our dry ingredients. We're going to move on to the dressing. So the dressing, we have some tahini. So this is sesame seed paste. And you can find tahini pretty much in any grocery store. It's usually by the nut butters and the almond butters and all of those. Depending on where you shop, they might have one tahini available or multiple types of tahini. Okay, so this is going to give it a really nice nutty flavor. And then we are going to be adding honey. You could also add maple syrup to this instead. Or agave nectar would work as well. You could even do some sugar if that's all you had on hand. Okay. And then we have our Dijon mustard and some apple cider vinegar. So just to save some dishes, I put them both together in the same little bowl. And then we have garlic powder, salt, pepper. Adding those in. And then we're going to start with 4 tablespoons of this is warm water to help thin this out. Might need to add a little bit more, but we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Okay. And I forgot to mention, so the chickpeas that I found at the store were salted chickpeas, so I made sure to rinse them really well to kind of get rid of any extra salt. I would recommend getting the unsalted or low sodium chickpeas if you can find them in the grocery store. Oftentimes they do add quite a bit of salt, and it's not really necessary for the chickpeas or beans in general, because then you can adjust how much salt you want to add to it, right? Okay, so that is looking, I'm gonna add a little bit more water just to thin it out just a little bit more, so that it coats all of the other ingredients really well. And honestly, like any type of salad like this, like if you were to make like a tuna salad or a chicken salad, these types of salads where they're nice and moist, they do taste better the second day because those flavors just sit and blend together and penetrate all of the ingredients. Okay, so that's a pretty good texture. It's not too thin, not too thick, right? We are going to add it to our salad ingredients. And then I am going to attempt to toss this without spilling any, but we'll see how that goes. Okay. Look at all those pretty colors. So I want to open it up to you all when it's really hot outside and you don't feel like cooking. What do you all gravitate towards when it's dinner time and it's too hot? You don't want to turn on the oven.
I like some salmon.
Smoked salmon, yeah. Do you eat it with anything?
Often kind of almost as finger food with those Jacob crackers. They're big square crackers that have no salt in.
Nice.
Those,
Okay, so
up at the I think it's called Savannah Meats. They the best, the most salmon I've ever had.
okay.
They put it in teriyaki for like 8 hours and smoke it, and it's sold in packages with, in foiled packages, so it's very preserved. Delicious.
Okay. So for those of you at home, smoked salmon, teriyaki salmon with crackers. Yes, I like that option. Any other any other people want to share? Also, you guys at home? Salads, yeah. Cucumbers, yeah.
I grab easy and go for veggies and dip.
Veggies and dip. You know what? That's what I do too.
You know, all that say with radishes, carrots, cucumber. I just grab that.
Yes, veggies and dip. Honestly, yes. Especially if you have a garden where you're actually growing veggies that you can dip.
Yeah.
Yeah, take advantage of that.
My grandson, he's learning to say the word charcuterie.
Charcuterie.
So it's time for the board, because I'm always not that good with it. So I'll pull it out and I'll say, just go open the fridge and get what you want. So he'll come over and grab all the stuff and then we'll just chop it and put it on the tray. There you go. He'll
Yep,
just sit there and
charcuterie board. Yeah, that's a good option.
I know, with my niece, it's come over, we do that.
All right, our salad is done. So we're just going to let it sit so those flavors just hang out and do what they need to do, and it'll be yummy by the end of class. Okay, let me rinse my hands because they are a little sticky from the cranberries. Now we are going to move on to our Thai salad. So we're going to start with the dressing. And I have some of the ingredients already prepped. Okay. And with dressings, I actually like to just make them in the measuring cup. Makes it a lot easier. You just add it in. And let me find a spatula. Okay, we are good. So We are going to start with a third of a cup of oil. I don't have olive oil. I have avocado oil, so we will be using that. Avocado oil is a really good oil as well. It is a neutral oil, so it's not going to have a strong taste like olive oil does. So it's kind of up to you what you want to use. But just know if you do use an olive oil for this vinaigrette, there's going to be that additional flavor level basically with that. So we're doing about a third of a cup. Okay. And then I'm just going to add all of the other ingredients to the measuring cup basically. So I have some grated garlic and ginger that I just grated before class. And with the ginger, because this is a dressing, I did choose to peel the ginger. Oftentimes, if I am cooking the ginger, I won't peel the ginger because it softens with heat. But in a dressing, the peel can be a little too chunky and rough. So it's kind of a personal preference. The easiest way to peel ginger is to take a spoon, just scrape it on the peel, comes right off. Yep. Okay. And then we're going to be adding some soy sauce. So this is, well, actually, this is full sodium soy sauce. So to make it low sodium soy sauce, we are going to do basically half soy sauce, half water. So we have 4 tablespoons. We're going to do 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of water. And that is a hack that you can use to save money too. You don't need to buy the reduced sodium soy sauce. All they do is add water to it. So you're basically paying extra for water that you can just do at home. Okay. All right. And then, so we're also going to be adding 2 tablespoons of water as well to this. A little bit more. To basically thin this out. Okay. We're going to be adding some rice vinegar. If you do not have rice vinegar, you can use apple cider vinegar, you could use white vinegar, whatever vinegar you have available.
How about the seasoned vinegar?
The seasoned vinegar would work, just being mindful that typically the seasoned vinegar has extra salt added to it. So you might need to adjust the soy sauce amount depending on how salty it actually is. Okay, vinegar goes in. I have some honey here, about 1 tablespoon, add a little bit of sweetness. You could also use maple syrup. You could use brown sugar in this as well. All right, next we are going to do sesame oil. So for your cold preparations, like your dressings, or if you're using sesame oil to finish a dish, for example, and not cook it, it's usually recommended to use toasted sesame oil. However, if you are cooking with it, you want to use untoasted sesame oil, right? Basically, when you are cooking the sesame oil, you're toasting it in a way. So if you're using toasted sesame oil when you're cooking, you're toasting it twice, and it can lead to a bitter taste. And with oils, especially sesame oil, we want to be mindful of not cooking it with really high heat because it has a low smoke point. If it gets heated for too long, too high of a temperature, the oil starts to the fatty acids in the oil start to turn into harmful compounds, and we don't want that. So that's another layer of why we use toasted versus untoasted for different preparations, basically. Okay.
Can't remember what I've got at the house.
So yeah, take a look.
On the bottle.
It,
posted,
yes,
or- okay.
yes, it would say. And the other way that you can tell is so when it's toasted, it's going to be like a brown color. When it's untoasted, it's a pale yellow.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So I have the zest of one lime and the juice of the same lime in here, so that's going to go in. And then the last thing, and this is optional, I like to add it just to give it another layer of flavor, is chili oil or chili garlic sauce. So this I'm using the one from Momofuku. It's their chili crunch. So it has a little bit of a crunchiness from, I believe they do like they add like cooked crispy onions and garlic to it. So it does have a little bit of heat. Um, I've been using this jar for a while, so there's not a whole lot of oil left in this. It's mostly just the solids. So there's some sesame seeds in here, the crispy garlic and onions, and then red pepper flakes that basically give it a little bit of heat. So we're just going to add about a tablespoon, not too much.
Where do you buy it?
So this one, this brand specifically, you can find it at Whole Foods. There, if you go to an Asian market, they have all sorts of different chili oils and chili garlic sauces. So I would recommend that's probably going to be a lot cheaper too. The reason I got this one is also gluten-free. I'm gluten-free at home, so this was the one that I knew for sure was gluten-free. I didn't have to check all the ingredients and all the things. However, they are a lot cheaper at the Asian store, and they have a lot more variety too. Okay, I'm going to try to find a whisk. Ah, yes, found the whisk. Just give this a little bit of a stir. All right, let everything blend together. And so what I'm going to do is, whoops, besides make a mess, I am going to leave this in this measuring cup, let it hang out, and then at the end of class, I'm going to dress the salad. Because the base of the salad is kale, it does a lot better with dressing it, like if you wanted to dress it and then just leave it alone. However, some of the other ingredients tend to be a little iffy. So what I would recommend, like if you wanted to prep this ahead of time, you could dress the kale and then have your other ingredients in a different container and then just mix it right before serving, basically. So this is curly kale. I bought it already chopped up from Trader Joe's. The one thing that I don't like about Trader Joe's and their chopped kale is they chop the entire thing, including the stems. So I had to go in and pick out the stems. If I missed one, I do apologize. So curly kale is pretty tough, pretty hardy. What we're going to do is we're going to soften it so it is easier to eat. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to add a little bit of salt. And I'm actually going to put on gloves. Hopefully I can get them on. We are going to massage this kale. So this is a really good hack if you don't like kale salads because they are too tough. Oftentimes people don't massage their kale. So it takes a lot longer to chew. It's takes you, 45 minutes to eat a kale salad. Shouldn't take that long. So massaging it is the answer, right? So I'm just gonna get in there, go to town. Yes, I put a little bit of salt. So what the salt does is it breaks down the cell wall. So basically helps to tenderize it. You could, if you wanted, rinse out the salt, basically put it in a strainer, rinse out the kale if you wanted it less salty. Um, you could also do this with oil, adding a little bit of oil instead of salt. It's not going to have quite the same effect, but yeah, I'm basically like grabbing it and rubbing it in between my fingers and my palm to break it down. So you can see like the volume has gone down quite a bit, right? And it's a lot darker, basically from being smushed. And there's a little bit more liquid. So that is basically from the cells themselves being burst open, that liquid coming out. I'm not going to strain it. That liquid is good, full of vitamins and minerals and things like that. So we're just going to leave that and we're going to add the rest of our ingredients basically. So here I have some grated carrots and some green onions. So it's quite a bit of green onions. It's a whole bunch. This is one of those recipes where it's kind of like a no waste recipe because you're using an entire bunch of kale, an entire bunch of green onions, an entire bunch of cilantro, right? You don't have leftovers of those things, which sometimes it can be hard to find uses for them afterwards, right? Okay, so we have those. I'm gonna put this to the side and grab another cutting board. So I have some of the bell peppers already cut up. I'm gonna put them in there. Can you guys see okay? Yeah, okay. Let me grab a different knife. I don't like that one. There we go. Okay, we're gonna cut the rest of these. So I like to just cut it in half, leave it a little chunky, right? Again, similar to the other salad, you can make this as chunky or as small as you want it, right? And you can play with the different textures however you want. Okay. So I chose to do 2 different colored bell peppers just for more color, right? This is a really colorful, beautiful salad. You can use whatever you have at home. If you had spicy peppers, you could also add that if you can tolerate the heat. That would also work. Okay. Next, we're going to work on our mango. So this is, I don't remember what kind of mango this is. I just refer to it as the red mango. If you're using the yellow mangoes, the smaller ones, I would recommend doing 2 mangoes. So this is washed. We are going to peel it and then just cut it up. So the way that I like to try to peel it, sometimes this works, sometimes this doesn't. So I made just a cross on the bottom of the mango, right? It hangs like this on the tree. This is where it connects to the tree, so the bottom. And then usually you can just peel it back from the section. It doesn't always work. It depends. If it's a ripe mango, it's going to work a lot easier. This guy is not super ripe. I tried to find the ripest one that they had in store. And this has a really thick skin, which doesn't usually happen. So I might have to resort to actually just cutting it off of the flesh. So this is going to add sweetness to the salad, also a lot of vitamin C. If you're having issues with constipation, mango is really great at relieving constipation. Okay. So I did my best here. I'm going to get rid of this peel. And then mango has this great big seed inside that we need to cut around. So basically what I do is I like to, so the seed lays like this, right? Thin. And what I like to do is I like to kind of poke around to figure out where the seed is. So the seed is going to be right here. And then just make one big slice along the seed. So you can see this is the where the seed is going to be. And then I missed a little bit. This part right here is really tough, so I'm just going to get rid of that. Then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So again, trying to figure out, cut a little too close. There we go. And then there's still flesh around the seed. So we want to get that too to kind of prevent any waste from happening. And again, depending on the mango, this is going to be easier or harder. Okay. And I can still feel some flesh around the seed, so I'm just going to take my knife and kind of just feel around and get as much flesh as I can. It's very tedious. You could also just get cut mango or frozen mango and not have to deal with all this. Okay, so this is the seed. This is what's left. This is what we toss. All right, so with this, I'm going to cut it into just cubes. All right, kind of doing my best with these other pieces of mango. Oh, that's a little dark. Okay. If you did not want to use mango in the salad, you could just leave it out or replace it with something else. Basically looking for a sweet factor. So if you wanted to, you could use pineapple. You could use apple or pear, or even doing dried fruit instead, just to give it a little bit of sweetness, right? Okay, I'm gonna add our mango in. Next, what's next? We added the green onions. Okay, the cilantro. Well, let's do the cashews first. So these are just raw cashews. I'm gonna give them a little bit of a rough chop so that it's a little bit easier to eat them. Oh, and they're falling on the floor a little bit. Okay. You could use toasted salted cashews if you wanted to as well. You could toast them yourself if you feel like turning on the oven or the stove. If you don't like cashews or don't have cashews, you can use any other nut and seed to replace this. Okay, cashews, still pretty chunky. Right. I'm gonna add those in. I'm also just going to throw the edamame in here. So this is shelled edamame. I got this frozen at Trader Joe's. They just had a 12-ounce bag. You can let it thaw overnight in the fridge, or you can put a pot of water to boil. Once it boils, throw them in, leave them there for a minute, rinse them out. Good to go. So these guys are going to have protein, fiber, a lot of vitamins and minerals. Okay, have my cilantro. If I need to wash this guy, have just one big bunch of cilantro. And because we are using the entire thing, what I like to do is keep the rubber band that's around it because it's usually, or you can move it down just a little bit if it's up on the leaves too much. And then it's basically going to act as a thing that holds this together. So you don't really have to. And we're just going to give it a good chop. It doesn't have to be super fine for this salad. And you can just toss the rest of this. Okay. All right, I'm gonna put this in. And then our basil is next. So I washed my basil. This is also the basil that will go into the pesto. And what I like to do is I like to put it on a towel. I couldn't think of the word. And then with some paper towels to help it dry. So basically now it's nice and dry. So I'm just going to toss these. So we're doing about half a cup here, which is about that much. And then the rest of this is just going to go in the pesto. So I'm going to take this over here, just throw it directly into our food processor. If you wanted to add more basil to the salad, you absolutely could. There we go. I'm just going to keep this here. Same thing as the cilantro. This does not need to be super fine. So basically just chopping it into ribbons, kind of, and then giving it another rough chop this way so that you get some of that cilantro and basil into every bite. Right. Okay. That's good. And then the last thing on our list is going to be avocado. So the avocado is washed. Similar to the mango, I tried to pick the ripest avocado they had. All right, I am not a fan of doing this to the seed because I've heard too many horror stories of severed nerves and lost hands and things like that. So I like to just press on the flesh around the pit and kind of shimmy it out, kind of press the bottom out, and eventually it will come out. This really only works if you have a ripe avocado. My God, come on. There we go. Okay. And you could technically scoop it out and then just cut it on your cutting board. I'm going to be real careful and just cut it in the shell.
So careful, why would you?
So I am very careful. I'm very gentle, very gentle with this. The number one reason people end up in emergency rooms because of avocados. Yes, yeah. So, what do you do at home?
Yeah, the seed is out by then. I just cut it again, the halves in half and plum
Okay.
it out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that
If
works.
it's right, the skin will come right off. Just plum it
Yes.
out. Oh my goodness.
Oh, absolutely. It's okay. I'm very, very gentle. Like I can feel it against my hand. It's not coming through. It's not, no, it wasn't poking. It wasn't poking through. I promise. You can do it on the counter, yes. Okay, so I'm just gonna use, it's all done. It's all done. No need to panic. All right. I haven't cut myself during a class, knock on wood, yet, so do have a lot of people watching me. Okay, so I just use the spoon, scoop it out. We are done with the salad. I'm going to give it a little bit of a toss. This is not the appropriate spoon to do this with, but just to get basically the cilantro and the basil, we wanted to kind of mix with everything else so that it kind of leaves those basically essential oils on everything else so it tastes nice and yummy. I'll give it another toss with the dressing later. Okay, so let's move on to our pesto so that we can get started on the sandwich. So we have our basil already in our food processor. You can make this in a blender as well. We have toasted pine nuts. So I did toast these. I bought untoasted pine nuts. They tend to keep a little bit better if they are untoasted. And I just toasted them in a pan, dry, no oil, until they were nice and brown and very fragrant. And you could hear the sizzling of the oil in the nuts themselves. You could also just buy toasted pine nuts and not have to do all that. So we're going to add those in. I have 2 cloves of garlic. Your recipe says to mince them. I'm going to let the food processor do the work, so they're just going in whole. Have some lemon juice and Parmesan. So I freshly grated this. You could just buy already grated Parmesan and add that in. Again, make it easier. And then we also need about a 1/4 cup of olive oil. Again, I don't have olive oil, I have avocado oil. It works well. The olive oil again gives it just a little bit more flavor. I'm going to eyeball this, and we're also going to, once we blend it, see texture-wise what it looks like. If it's a little bit too dry, going to add more oil. And then we're going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. So I'm going to start with a little bit of salt, just eyeballing it. Was that too much salt? I'll taste it just to see what it tastes like before adding more, and then a good amount of pepper just to give it some good flavor. Okay. Sorry, that's very loud. Okay. And then you could add red pepper flakes if you wanted to. I did not bring any, so we're not going to add them. And it's going to get a little loud. If you wanted to, you could use other nuts and seeds instead of the pine nuts. So walnuts would work really well, pistachios works really well, hemp seeds would work. Okay. So I'm just scraping this a little bit. This would work, especially for this recipe specifically because of the quantities. This would work really well if you had a smaller food processor or blender. It's looking a little dry to me, so I'm just going to add a little bit more oil. And basically, we're blending it until everything is nice and combined. Okay. And there's still a little bit, again, like the quantities are a little bit small, so there are some pine nuts that are still, oh my gosh, pretty whole. So I'm just going to give it another pulse, and then we're done. Okay, cool. So we have our pesto. Again, you could just use store-bought. You do not have to make your own pesto. However, if you are growing basil, this is a really good way to use it. And just a storage hack for pesto. If you're only using a little bit and you want to store it, a good way to do that is stick it in some ice cube trays in the freezer, and then you can just pop them out into a Ziploc bag, and then you can, whenever you need it, you just defrost 1, 2, however many servings you need. Okay, so this is our pesto. Here, I'm gonna move things around. You guys see it's nice and moist. Everything's pretty good, pretty well combined. Okay. Let me just rinse off my cutting board. And then we are going to move on to the sandwich. All right. There is one thing I forgot to do. So before we bring out the bread, we are going to chop up the sun-dried tomatoes. So I already have my pesto, I have my zucchini cut up pretty thin as I could get it with a knife. I don't use mandolins in the kitchen. I lost a battle with a mandolin a few years ago. It claimed one of my fingertips, so it no longer belongs in my kitchen. So I just use a knife. So I try to get them as thin as I can so you can eat zucchini raw. It tastes really good. It's nice and buttery. So we're going to be using that. And then I have some sun-dried tomatoes that are in oil. And we are going to just chop them up a little bit into a paste. If you don't like sun-dried tomatoes, you can just leave this out. I'm kind of eyeballing the quantities too for this recipe just because it's using a baguette that's pretty big, so it's kind of we'll just see how this happens. So this is what we're using in terms of bread, just for the purpose of this class. It is a ciabatta baguette. So your recipe calls for ciabatta bread. And I'm just chopping up the sun-dried tomatoes basically to make them a little bit easier to spread onto the bread. I almost want like a chunky paste, basically, in terms of texture. And it adds a really nice flavor to this sandwich. Okay, I think that's pretty good because it is sun-dried. The tomato is sun-dried. The flavor is pretty intense in terms of tomato, so you don't need a whole lot. A little goes a long way with this recipe. Okay, I'm just gonna put this to the side. Might need to do a little bit more, we'll see. And then let me just put on some gloves. I also have the arugula. So this is triple washed. It's ready to go. You don't need to wash it. All right. And then let me find a bread knife. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this guy in half. Nice and soft. And then we're going to cut it. This is a really long bread. Gonna cut it in half again. If you wanted to, you could toast this bread. You do not have to. If you had a grill going, you could just throw the bread on the grill. So you're not turning on your oven. The heat stays outside.
Get that bread at Trader Joe's also.
I did get this bread at Trader Joe's, yes.
What is ciabatta?
What is ciabatta? That's a good question. So it's a Italian style bread. And honestly, I don't know what they do to the dough to make it. Like you can see it has a lot of air bubbles. And then it traditionally has this square shape. Right, so typically there are rolls like that, maybe that big, and depending on where you get it from, it's going to have a different shape. So this is basically a baguette. It's that square shape. And it's a little bit, it's not fluffy like a French baguette. It's pretty dense. But that's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the pesto. I'm going to put the pesto down on one side on the bottom of the bread. And spread it out. Nice and even. Okay. And then we are going to do the sun-dried tomatoes on this half. So I might need to chop some more for the other half of the baguette. if you think about it, with all the colors, we're gonna have white mozzarella in the middle, red on top, green on the bottom. It's an Italian flag. Okay. Making a little bit of a mess, but that's okay. All right. And then what I'm gonna do is bring out my mozzarella. So I just picked up one of these mozzarella logs that is already pre-sliced. Makes it real easy. You could slice your own. If you wanted to, you could use other types of cheese. Or as a vegan preparation, I think like sliced grilled eggplant would work really well for this. Yeah. So I'm just going to take my mozzarella, put it down on the pesto side, doing a little bit of an overlap. You could add meat to this as well. I think prosciutto would work really well, or even like a little bit of salami. Okay. Then we're going to add our zucchini, our sliced zucchini. You could leave the zucchini out if you wanted to. You could basically add whatever veggies you wanted to this. Okay, and then we have our baby arugula, or you could use whatever other leafy greens you wanted. I don't think kale would work really well with this, but some of those more tender leafy greens would work well. I'm gonna try my best. This arugula is gonna do, so we're just gonna pile it on here and hope for the best, basically. Smush it, yes. And then before I put the lid on it, we are going to add some balsamic glaze. So this is also from Trader Joe's. You could make your own if you wanted to. It's literally just balsamic vinegar and sugar that you cook on the stovetop until it turns nice and syrupy. So we're just gonna do a drizzle. Yes, the closest Trader Joe's to here is South Everett. And then I'm not going to be able to put all this arugula on. That's fine. And the sun-dried tomatoes kind of went everywhere, but that's okay. Sandwiches are supposed to be a little messy when you make them. And there we go. That is our sandwich. All right, I'll do the other half. Any questions?
I think that would work as finger food.
This would work as finger food, yes. Yeah,
I do have a question on
Totally.
the Thai salad.
yes. Oh, I need to mix the Thai salad. That's the last thing. Yes, go ahead.
If you were still not convinced that kale is your favorite, what could you use in place of kale in that salad?
Yes, what could you use in place of kale? You could do lettuce. You could do any type of lettuce mix. You could do arugula. You could do, what else could you do? Spinach. Spinach you could do. Yeah, leaf lettuce, romaine, iceberg. You would, however, just skip the massaging step
Right.
for anything else. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Do you have to add a little extra salt into your lettuce?
Not necessarily. Yeah, it's pretty, lettuce is pretty tender, so you don't necessarily need to add the extra salt.
Flavor.
Yeah. Yep. So here's what I'm gonna do. Can you guys see the salad bowl or do I need to move it? Yeah, we're good. Okay. So I'm gonna give this salad dressing another mix. And then we are going to pour it over. So it is a little liquidy and that is okay. And give this a nice toss. And honestly, this stores really well even with the dressing because of the kale. It it if you eat it soon enough, I would say if you eat it within like 2 to 3 days, we're good. Also, depending on how ripe your mango is, if it stays a little bit longer in the fridge, things do tend to get a little slimy. So depending on how long, like if you wanted to meal prep this, make it at the beginning of the week, I would recommend just have your dressing on the side. And even separating out like the bell peppers, the mango, the avocado, so that things don't get slimy and weird. Yeah. But this is nice and flavorful. It smells really good. I don't know if you guys can smell it yet. All right. So we have our two salads, our sandwich. I'm going to keep working on the rest of the sandwich. And that's the class. Thank you so much for joining. Hope you guys at home get to try these recipes. And yeah, we're just going to finish up and then you guys can eat.